Thank you, everyone. My name is Tony Turner, and I'm the chairman of the Central Middle School Building Committee. And needless to say, first, I want to say thank you for your taking time out of what I know is a busy day and a busy week to learn more about the conceptual design of the Central Middle School. But more importantly is to get your questions answered and to receive any feedback that you might have for the professionals who I'm going to introduce coming up here shortly. First of all, for some pre-agenda comments, I want to make sure that you know this is our second community engagement forum. Our first forum was held in early March. I think March 8th was the specific date. We have since had a perimeter neighbors meeting. That was a couple of weeks ago. And then, of course, tonight, as you know, this is our second community forum. There most likely will be others. But I really would hope that you would view the meeting tonight as really being for you. I do want to reemphasize, we want to hear your questions. We want to get your feedback, and we'll talk a little more about the mechanics of that coming up shortly. The role of the committee, as you may or may not know, the building committee is charged with really one thing and one thing only, and that is to build the building according to the educational specifications given to us by the Board of Education. So we are not responsible for the cost of the building, the size of the building, the educational curriculum, and so forth. We really have that only purpose. So I hope tonight, as you see and hear the information that we're going to share with you to ask for your feedback, that you'll stay focused with your questions and feedback around what you see and not the other topics that are on the periphery. I'm sure either the Board of Education and the financial bodies in town would be delighted to answer those specific questions. But again, our real role is to build the committee or build the building according to the educational specifications. With that, let's go to the slide for the agenda that you can see up on the screen, both here in the room and for our streaming audience. You should be able to see that now. So first of all, we're going to take a look at the preliminary high-level project timeline. We're going to hear from the architects as of up to this point, what they have envisioned as being the site plan, partial design of the building, and so forth. And then hopefully, with time permitting, we're going to do our very best to try to answer as many of your questions as possible. And then we're going to, as we look at adjourning, is talk about how you can stay informed going forward. You should have received, when you came in this evening, a piece of paper that looks something like this. That is, it has a QR code on it, and at the very bottom, you can see the website of menti.com. We're going to be using this methodology tonight to collect your questions. We want to leverage technology, and it's the only way that we've been able to determine to collect everyone's questions and get them answered. And of course, if we can't get them answered tonight live as they stream in on menti.com, and you can see the 8-digit code that you need to punch in to get access to that, then we will be answering all of the questions in writing and posting them to the GPS Central Middle School website. So it is very, very important, at least for us, that you feel as though that you're heard. And if you don't have a smartphone, we do have small pencils and index cards that you can access and turn in your questions manually. But that way we can make sure that no one gets omitted in all of their questions. And again, we will be sure to submit the answers to all of your questions a little later. You can even start now on sending in your questions. Please don't wait until the end. So if it's about energy efficiency or any other topic related to the initial or this preliminary conceptual design of the building, we would urge you to send those right along. With that, I want to make some brief introductions and then turn it over to Slam for our presentation, or the primary part of our presentation this evening. As you know, we have, excuse me, we've hired 3 professionals to help us with the project. First of all is Construction Solutions Group, and to my immediate right is Jim Giuliano, the president of Construction Solutions Group. They are playing the role of the owner's representative for us. Next is the SLAM Collaborative. They are the hired architects for the initiative. And the 4 people to my very far right are all here from the SLAM organization. And Amy and Kemp will be introducing themselves and their 2 colleagues, Jim and Henry, a little later. And then lastly, Turner Construction, no relation. I get that question often every day, but Turner Construction is the construction manager at risk that we have hired to work in a 2-phase effort on the project. First of all is to give us a project cost estimate, and that is due next Wednesday, May 24th. And then secondly, to actually manage the construction of the new proposed school. And to my immediate left is Tim Kleps. Tim is the project executive from Turner Construction. So we wanted to be sure to put our professionals in front of you. Most importantly, if you have some one-on-one questions after we adjourn this evening, they have offered to stay around and interact with you individually if you would like to do that. One last slide, and then I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to Jim. And that is, we do want to share with you the estimated timing on the project for illustrative purposes. These are approximates. They're not exact. And as you can imagine, with a project as large as this and substantial as a proposed new Central Middle School, these could possibly change. But as you can see, design and approvals, we continue to be in that stage now. We're only about 100 days into the actual conceptual design, and that project is still underway. Construction bidding awards early spring, early summer next year, March 24 to May 24. Construction, particularly if you're here wearing a neighbor hat, we want you to know that's targeted for summer of 2024. Running for approximately 18 months to February of 26. Then occupancy and move in the spring, summer of 2026. And then demolition of the existing building and site work completion in early fall of 2026. Again, this is high level, subject to change, but this is the best thinking of the professionals that I've highlighted earlier up to this point. Next is the project timeline, and I'm going to turn it over to Jim Giuliano to talk about that.
Thank you, Tony. So as you can see in the project timeline, right now, as Tony explained previously, the construction, the design phase, I should say, is going to take us until approximately May. I'm getting some feedback there. So that will encompass the conceptual design, the schematic design, the design development, and the construction documents. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Right now we are in the concept design, we are in the conceptual design phase, which is the very early stages of design. And I'll use an analogy that the building committee chair likes to use. We're in the more of the wet clay form of the design process. As we move forward through schematic design development and construction documents, that wet clay becomes drier and harder as the further along that we move in the process. So, again, right now we're in the very early stages. We're analyzing the concept design. Right now, Turner has the conceptual design and is in the process of performing their conceptual design estimate for our first look at where we are with the budget. And again, as Tony stated earlier, construction and any activity out on the site within the confines of the school will not happen until around June of 2024. So if anything's happening before that, it's really not part of the building committee or this project. There will be opportunities for public input when the project goes through the municipal process, approval process, especially the P and Z hearings, and also ARC and the municipal improvement approval process. So with that said, I'm going to now turn it over to Slam and Amy, and look forward to any other questions you may have after the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Tony. So the first thing that we did when we began this process is we met with the stakeholders. Hopefully some of you were involved. Neighborhood groups were all invited, as well as members of the town staff, town agencies and committees and commissions, and the faculty and staff of Central Middle School. At that time, we had a visioning session. We brainstormed and requested the most important purposes that each of those individuals would like to see in the design of the school. And we collected all of that information, we distilled it, and we were able to find 3 common themes for those comments. So here I'm presenting the 3 goals that are tenets of the project. As we move forward with design, we're always going to come back to these 3 goals. This first one is purposeful and resilient design. Create a safe and secure facility for Greenwich that supports the current educational program, yet is adaptable, flexible, and resilient to evolve as the challenges of curriculum, technologies, and pedagogies advance. Site design and building form to celebrate this unique location in Greenwich while respecting its neighbors. It's a mouthful, but I think that the key there is to make sure that we're designing a building that is flexible enough to move forward in the next 30 to 50 years as an active learning environment, but also reflects the values of this neighborhood. So we intend to follow up on that as we move through the process. The second tenet that was strong and came through multiple times in that visioning session was to foster engaged learning. You know, as a school, that's probably the most important part of the interior of that building is to make sure that we're bringing all of the best learning environments to those students. So that goal is to create a facility that fosters discovery and innovation with flexible and transformative environments that encourage interdisciplinary interactions, social experiences, and immersive learning to prepare all students to be lifelong learners. It's a great goal for adult buildings too. And lastly, the tenet that rose to the top in that series of questions and goals from all of those stakeholders is sustainable actions. Design a smart building, meaning socially responsible, measurable, and artful, that positively impacts the well-being of students, staff, and the community, reduces the consumption of energy, water, and production of waste. Include features designed under the well building standard to create environments that promote the health and well-being of the building occupants. So again, we have been, as a part of the process of being contracted here, we have been asked to provide a net zero equivalent or net zero ready building. And so we're working toward that. We've met with members of the Greenwich Sustainable Community, and we've have internal reviews for making sure that our operational energy and our embodied energy or carbon footprint remain low. And so we're working toward that in all of our designs as well. Some facts about the school, and in particular about the ed spec that we are working toward, that was recently approved by the Board of Ed. An existing condition report is that the campus is approximately 22 acres with 98 existing parking spaces. We like to make sure that we've done a complete and thorough investigation of the existing conditions as we move forward with design. The proposed Central Middle School program area from those ed specs is 81,005 net square feet. And the gross area is going to be approximately a 65% building efficiency, which is it grosses up to 124,623 square feet. If it is exactly 65%, we will be working toward that goal. Exact numbers will come out later. Existing Central Middle School has a program area of approximately 77,256 net square feet and gross area of 110,682 gross square feet. These numbers are from existing condition documentation that we received from Greenwich. And SLAM has not done a detailed inventory of the existing building, but this is what we've received. The difference between those is as posted above, about 3,700 net square feet in program area and about 14,000 gross square feet in entire building area. As a part of those square footages, we've broken down the department by department areas. So you can see that there are some changes in just about every department of the school, as listed here. I'm not going to go through all of the numbers, but you can see in the right-hand column what spaces we include in each of those departments. So hopefully that helps you understand how we calculate the area of each department. So some areas have gone up from existing to new building, and that's in order to keep up with the evolving pedagogies and ways that we teach students and the services that we provide to students. For example, there wasn't really a special ed department in 1957 when the school was built. At that time, there was only one principal and one vice principal. Now we have a larger administration and a more robust special education department. There are 2 assistant principals, for example. There's a special ed department, and there is a lot of counselors in the counseling department. And in the 1950s, that also was a service that didn't exist. So you'll see that some areas like that have increased. Some have increased over time within the building as they've grown and evolved and tried to take storage rooms and turn them into offices and things like that. That's a normal process of a building. When we design new buildings, we look to make sure that we provide flexibility for the future so that as the education continues to evolve, the new building will be able to accommodate all the new pedagogies. Second page with the same information, different departments. Again, you'll see that some of those departments have gone up in area and others have gone down. Really trying to tighten up the footprint. The building support number has gone down, but others have gone up to accommodate all of those new areas. So I'm going to turn the presentation over now to the 2 gentlemen at the far end of the table, and I'll introduce my colleagues here. So to the right is, to my immediate right, I'll say, is Kemp Morehart, project principal in charge of design and both at SLAM and all of our consulting engineers. Jim Hoagland is to his right. Jim is the design architect at SLAM. He's working on the building design. And then at the end is Henry Withers. Henry is the landscape architect, also in SLAM, and he's working on the site design in conjunction with our civil engineer.
Thank you, Amy. Can everybody hear me? All right. Thank you for coming tonight. Some of you, I think I recognize from the last time we presented, and just wanted to kind of go back over some of the initial ideas and then let you know what things might have changed. This plan, I think you saw last time as well. This is the current site as it exists. Was indicated as 22 acres plus or minus, and this shows the location of the existing central school with the little parking areas, the drop-off bus area, and the parent drop-off and parking area, as well as the fields to the north. And then there's the large rock outcropping that's right in front of the school there that you see. There are some sidewalks that go along Indian Rock as well. So that this is the existing school. And it is important because it shows the existing entrances you see by those little stars, both at the bus drop off and the parent drop off. Those are really the main entrances, both off of Indian Rock. And because they're really against Indian Rock Lane and there's not a lot of room, as you're probably all aware, there's a lot of stacking that occurs on Indian Rock Lane. So one of our constant goals is to try to reduce that and to try to simplify the traffic patterns in those areas. And you can see that those are kind of key intersections that the traffic engineers all looked at up by Coach Lamp, Stanwich and Indian Rocks intersections. So those are all important in understanding how traffic flows today, what the speeds are. And we've just recently gotten the full report from the traffic engineer. And I spoke with him this afternoon. It included actually some of the current data now on speeds, which we didn't have last time. We had general flows and counts, but he now has speeds as well, which is going to be helpful in moving forward and designing some of these or proposing some of the designs for the changes in traffic circulation. So the next slide is the current layout of the building as it it stands conceptually today. We from the plan that you saw the last time, or that was presented last time, the building has moved south as far as we could take it to preserve existing tree line to the north. We met with the tree warden, the fire marshal, and DPW and the town planner on site and walked and showed them the original plan. And based on that input, we made a lot of changes to the plan that you'll see tonight. This is, I think, as Tony said, we're in the wet clay stage, so this is still a work in progress, but it represents some change from the last time. That included changes that Jim has made to the layout of the footprint of the building. And we are trying to get it out of the hill to try to preserve more of the existing trees. The fire marshal did want a fire lane all the way around the building. We've reflected that. We're looking at, as I said, we just got the final traffic report where it's highlighted in yellow there along Orchard. We're looking at another potential entrance in that location, which isn't shown here. The whole idea is that right now what we've got is an entrance kind of just a little bit beyond Coach Lamp, which in walking it with, again, the fire marshal and DPW and the tree warden, all people, all staff present at that meeting felt like that was a good location for an ingress only, just into the site. And that would be primarily for buses coming off of Orchard into the site. that would not be, they weren't comfortable with anything going out at that location because of the site distances, the grades, and the lack of visibility. And our traffic engineer sort of reiterated the same. We have certain standards that have to be met for buses, which are beyond cars even, but even for cars, it's a tough intersection. But coming in, it worked well. So we are looking where that yellow line is at potentially then coming back out, but you'd come in and where Amy is currently following the line, that would be a bus drop-off area in there, separate from the parent drop-off, which would still come in off of Indian Rock. So the two would be entirely separate. Right now, you have the buses exiting and entering about the same time many parents are coming to pick up kids or dropping kids off. And it's actually quite amazing. I've watched it many times, and it's actually pretty amazing that it works as well as it does. It's not a great situation, but people seem to be courteous enough, and all the buses seem to be able to get out in time. It all occurs in a fairly short window of about 30 to 40 minutes, and amazingly, it clears up right after that. But this type of an arrangement would allow a huge length of stacking off of Indian Rock that would take the stacking that currently occurs all the way around Orchard off of Indian Rock. And to add to that, then the buses coming off of Orchard would mean that they don't even enter Indian Rock. They would be coming in before that and be out of the way of the traffic of the parents trying to drop off. And again, if we are able to meet site distances for views and safety, just headed north of the tennis courts, we could also then have the buses exit there, so that not only are they entering different than the parent drop off, but they're leaving separately as well, so that there's even less conflict, and they could make their way back out onto Orchard and find their way back to where they're going. And again, that egress would be only one way out. It wouldn't be an entrance. And it would most likely, and again, this is all preliminary information based on some discussions with the traffic engineer this afternoon and with the building committee. Their hopes is to have something like this work, but we're looking at that being a right turn only, so that as you exit, that's about the only way we can make that work for site distances to be safe. But that would help a lot, because it would separate the two even further, and I think keep the traffic running even more smoothly. The tennis courts still remain. We've shown the fields down to the south where the school is, and again, the location of the school has pulled south, but we leave it far enough away from the building that we're hoping that we can still accommodate a fire lane in there, eventually, so that during construction of the new school, while the existing school is a functioning facility, that we'd be able to maintain the safety and the requirements that it needs for parking and for drop off. And so all that would go on until the new school is ready to be occupied. Then it would be taken down, and the fields would be put in the place, and the new drives and parking would be completed in those areas. You can see there's kind of a magenta line that represents the existing tree line. And again, in the meeting with your tree warden, he was interested in maintaining as much of those trees as possible. We are as well. So, we've shown that magenta line coming over the improvements. You can see where we've cut into it to a degree in various areas, but we're trying to preserve as many of the existing trees as we can. Even the little looped drive that you see to the right as you enter in off of Indian Rock is sort of similar to the existing visitor parking area. And so we'd even be able to maintain a few of the trees, actually where Amy's circling, a few of those trees in that island would probably be the existing. So we're trying to balance preservation of the site and the existing trees with the program of trying to maintain safety and take care of traffic. We've also looked at bringing the sidewalk down, and making sure that the pedestrian sidewalks connect back where they need to, and connect all the way up back to Coach Lamp internally, so that the kids aren't walking along the street, which is, traveled at a fairly decent rate of speed. And, we walked it again several times, and we walked it with your staff. Definitely, it's something that we want to make sure the kids are protected, with the internal sidewalk. I don't know, Amy, if I've missed anything or whether you'd like to move on with Jim to the building. Is there anything that I should have addressed? Okay, and we're happy to, again, take questions after. Go ahead, Tony.
Yes, but before we move to the next slide, I want to highlight a couple of things. I'm hoping whether you're part of our streaming audience tonight or you're in the room, one of the underlying things that I hope you're hearing is communication. The professionals that you see here, they have had several meetings, be it with Public Works, the fire department, obviously the tree warden and others, and in working on finalizing or trying to get to a finish on conceptual design and then schematic design. So rest assured, all of the appropriate departments have been included. Secondly, I want to talk a little about option 7.2. Why does it say 7.2? That should indicate to you really where we are in the process. I said earlier, we've been at this for about 100 days now. Well, we got from option 1 to 3 in about 30 minutes. That only took one meeting. And we got from option 3 to 6 over the course of a couple of weeks. And then we went to option 7 and then 7.1 and 7.2. So we are beginning to narrow some things down. And that's why we wanted to, at this time, have another community engagement forum to let you know on the timing and exactly where we are. In the next slide, we begin to look at the floor plan. So what I'd like to do is to just add a friendly reminder, whether you're in the room tonight or streaming with us, this is a great time to reflect on what you've heard and seen up to this point and send in your questions. And Kemp is going to be looking at the questions as they come in and group them along the way. But this is a great time to do that. Friendly reminder. And Amy, back to you.
Thank you. So just to add to that reminder, there is a QR code on each of the slides as we move forward with the presentation. So particularly for those who are watching online, you can use that QR code. If you're in the room, I believe you have a handout with the QR code. And one more thing I'd like to reiterate from Henry and Tony in conjunction with that communication that we've been doing with your town officials. We also are lucky to have as members of the building committee, one of the commissioners for the Planning and Zoning Commission, and also a representative from DPW. So those members are with us regularly at building committee meetings as well. So we appreciate that. And I'll let Jim move on. Yes, raise your hand and someone will come around and pick up the questions on the cards.
So thanks. The team has been working diligently to pull all of the information on the site together. I have been focusing on the building. And so as the team works through, Henry and I have been working shoulder to shoulder, and there's a lot of factors. As he explained, there's really three integral pieces to the site. We always look at the parking. So we're looking at bus and parent circulation, vehicular circulation coming in and leaving the site, all of the play fields, and then there's the building. So we're somewhat limited on space here, and we've explored many, many different options. We've located the building across different portions of the site and talked internally with the team as well as with the building committee about the advantages and opportunities that each of those thought processes presents to us. So we've arrived on this option, and it really is a snapshot in time, and we're continuing to develop the site and the building hand in hand. So each time Henry makes a subtle move on the site, the building team starts to look and see how we can react to that and make sure that the two are working in concert. So the floor plan that you see here is the first floor. It's actually the main level of a two-story school. So those of you that were at the previous community event, we were contemplating a three-story or three-level building. And based on planning and zoning, we were allowed to do that because in no portion of the building was it taller than 2 stories. It was 3 levels, but we're taking advantage of the topography and we're trying to push the building as far north on the site as we could to provide extra space for the parking that was required as well as the fields. So that was part of what we're going through, the give and take. We have now developed a plan where it is a 2-story building. It takes up a little bit more space on the site. There's a larger building footprint. So Henry has a little bit less space to work with parking and fields. But I think the building has really come together quite nicely and organized itself. We've been working with the school staff, administrators, and the building committee for immediate feedback. We've run a number of workshops. We've done some preference mapping to talk about specific spaces within the building. So as I said, this is a snapshot in time. So the main level, we're planning on having it accommodate all of the community-based spaces. So you can see the gymnasium, the cafeteria, and the auditorium are all located on this main level. And I think one of the important things to note is that as Henry's been developing the site, the bus loop and the parent loop are designed to drop students and have them come in a single entrance. For security purposes, the administrators and staff want to see where the students are coming from and how they're entering the building. So you see the main entry labeled there with a big red arrow. So all the students in the morning would come in through a secure entry and then distribute through the building. And we're actually using the topography and the 2-story building to separate educational spaces and the community spaces vertically. And I'll get into the second floor. So the first floor, the way it's organized, as you come in that main entry, there's a common lobby that will service the auditorium as well as the gymnasium. So some of those bigger public functions, we have a nice spacious lobby that will do double duty for either one of the events that would happen in those spaces. And then over to the right-hand side of this drawing, you can see a little bit more traditional classroom wing, and we've located the consumer family science program, the life skills, a wood shop, and some offices, as well as some mechanical spaces buried in some of the windowless spaces in the heart of the floor plan. And then in the top right corner, you can see the cafeteria labeled with a kitchen. And we anticipate all the service deliveries coming in at that top right corner of the plan. And that coincides with where the buses would be entering the site as Henry described. So it would be buses and delivery vehicles. So those bigger vehicles are all coming in off of the Orchard Street side of the site, the east side of the site. And we'd provide a receiving area, all the deliveries would come in, and then those larger vehicles would leave on that side of the building as well. So some of the spaces that are labeled custodian, electrical, and mechanical are kind of pushed back into the hillside. And if you can envision it, with this building pushed back as far north on the existing baseball field, we've pushed the building into the slope a little bit to take advantage of the topography. So the custodial, electrical room and mechanical room labeled in the gray spaces on the north side, the top part of the building, are actually buried into a retaining wall. So they would be windowless spaces. These aren't teaching spaces. They're not student occupied spaces. So we're trying to find those efficiencies where we're compressing the footprint, getting it as tight and as efficient as we possibly can. And then moving up to the upper level, you can see I described all of the educational spaces on one level. So working with the administrators and some of the workshops that we ran through, the preference mapping that we looked at was very, very interested in creating smaller neighborhoods for each of the grades. So you can see these are labeled. The 6th grade team would be, or 2 6th grade teams would be located over on the right-hand side of this plan. The 7th grade teams would be located in the middle pod, and then the 8th grade teams on the far left-hand side of this drawing. So the way the teams work, as we understand it, is they really want to function as small neighborhoods. And I think there was a stated desire to keep the learning environments and neighborhoods as small and intimate as possible. And that's how the teams or the neighborhoods and teams would function the best. So we've spent a lot of time talking with Principal Tom here, and he really appreciates the fact that each of the grade levels has their own area that they can identify with some smaller breakout areas. The way each of the teams is organized is fairly consistent. There would be 4 academic classrooms grouped together with a science room. And so that makes up the team. And then we're sprinkling in some support space with each of those. So each grade gets 2 teams, and a few of the shared specialists would be sprinkled throughout the building, as well as staff and some administrators up on this floor. You can also see in the upper right corner of the plan is the media center. And we have a few specialty spaces that would be associated with that. There would be some dedicated classrooms where teachers could bring and have some media specialists do some instructional work with them within the media center, as well as some of the more specialized spaces. Robotics and an innovation lab would be directly linked to that media center. The media center specialist would be responsible for organizing and coordinating a lot of those programs. But the administrators thought it was pretty important for the media center to be integrated with the students on this floor. And the other unique thing about this would be how it fits into the topography. So all of these classrooms on the north side, the upper portion of this plan would have direct access to grades. So they wouldn't necessarily have to use stairs to get back downstairs. They could egress directly to the outside. And it has helped us compress the footprint and give Henry a little bit more space on the site to do what he needs to do.
Also takes advantage. It also takes advantage of the fact that we have to have a fire lane around the building anyway. And so a portion of the fire lane in each of those areas where Jim's talking about would allow students an outdoor learning area or a space, for use for classroom, what have you, that would be part of the fire lane, but it would probably be done in pavers or something nicer where the kids would have a nice space out there against the woods, a little bit of paths going up into the woods as they have today for some of the biology classes and horticultural classes.
So as a snapshot in time today, that's how the building has kind of landed on the site, and it seems to be working fairly well in concert with all the site amenities that we need to recognize. So we can go to the next slide. The other big focus of conversation with the building committee and the design review committee and some of the school staff has been the overall character of the school, and we are beginning to explore that. We had created a little package and we've been talking to Turner Construction about the upcoming estimates that have been being developed. So we were all very interested in how this new building was going to fit into the site. I think the town of Greenwich has been very accustomed to how Central Middle School sits there right now and how it looks and what the aesthetic is. But with this opportunity to build a brand new school, I think it was a worthwhile effort to think about how it fits into the site and recognize some of the natural elements that are out there. As you walked in, you probably saw all the rock outcroppings. I think it's a big part of the character of the site, and the design team wanted to recognize that. So we've been trying to integrate natural materials into the building, and you can see just go back one slide. Yeah, so as the team walked the site, when we kind of looked at the opportunities of that big open play field, you can see the backdrop of the trees that kind of climb the hill at the north side of the site. And it is a very natural feeling site, very comfortable. And we've always had the intention to keep as much of that buffer as we can. We've had some early conversations with the neighbors. We want to try to keep as many of the trees and have the site feeling as much as it does today as possible. Despite the fact that we're going to be building a large building on the play field and kind of flip-flopping the whole site around. But recognizing that, I think it influenced some of the character as we start to explore materiality on the building. So go to the next one. So now you can begin to see how that building fits against the backdrop of all the trees on the north end of the site. And some of the elements that we're looking at are recognizing that long parent drop. And so as people enter Indian Rock Drive, there's going to be a much longer view of the school. You're going to be seeing it, a couple hundred yards away as opposed to right close to Indian Rock. So we wanted the front entry to be really evident. So we're exploring some options using some natural timber construction, some wood construction and glass, where that becomes a taller element, and it becomes really evident where the main entry is for any visitors. And as the students arrive, be it by car being driven by their parents or by buses, they would all come into that main entry. And then the way the bigger box spaces kind of flank that, you would see the gymnasium off to the left. And then the auditorium gets buried a little bit into the footprint of the building. And then the element that you see over on the right-hand side of the drawing would be the two-story classroom wing. So right now, we've been having some conversations with Turner, and some of the materials that they're pricing for the next effort recognize the fact that we want to use some stone elements. We think the building should be grounded on the site, very much like the rock outcroppings that exist there. So you can see the character of the school. We're anticipating some sort of, rusticated rock base, and whether that's a cultured stone or whether it's a masonry product. We're looking at a number of different options. And then up above that, we're looking at a material that is, hopefully going to last 60 to 70 years. We're looking at a cementitious panel. And right now, the cementitious panels, they're doing some really nice jobs with manufacturing it to actually make it look like wood. So right now, that's the character that we're beginning to explore, and you can kind of see how the renderings are expressing that, with a nice stone base that sets the building right into the site, and then some really scaled wood detailing up above that, and the appropriate glass and windows into the classrooms and all the learning spaces in the school. So as a real high level view, that's kind of where the design team is right now, looking at character and the overall building development and how it sits on the site.
Thanks, Jim. So again, reiterating that we are open to questions. I believe we have quite a few. Kemp's been typing and copying and pasting and putting them into our own documents so that we can organize them by type, subject matter, category. Sure.
Just a quick housekeeping note on questions. We're going to keep the Mentimeter open until 8:15. So if you're online streaming or you're in the room with us tonight, please take every opportunity to submit your questions, feedback, suggestions. Again, we want to emphasize tonight is for you. We really would like to hear from you. And obviously, we're not going to have enough time to answer all the questions, but we will be sure, as you can see here on the slide, to post the answers to all of the questions on the GPS website under the Central Middle School Building Committee tab. So if we could ask you to send those questions in now, and I think as they continue to come in, I am going to ask Tim Klepp to my immediate left, the project executive from Turner Construction, to just spend a minute about the project cost estimate process. As I said earlier, that is due to the Board of Education and to the Building Committee next Wednesday, May 24th. So Tim, as questions are coming in, why don't you give us an update about process on that?
Sure. Thank you, Tony. So just to start, we've started gathering the information from SLAM and the other consultants. Sounds so strange. And we have a team in our office that has started to pull together the information for this conceptual cost estimate. In order to do this, we use the site plans that SLAM had just gone through, as well as those floor plans. In addition to that, what it was not brought up here was some narratives that tell us about the building components and the materials that are going to be used, the mechanical systems. We have geotechnical information that's been collected, as well as we get into the demolition and the removal of the existing school, the hazardous material. So we're in the process right now of gathering a lot of information, reviewing that information and analyzing it. From there, we use historical information, our intimate experience and knowledge of the market here in Connecticut, especially here in the Greenwich territory, to be able to pull together comp information and historical information to come up with this conceptual cost estimate, which is based on unit pricing of materials, unit pricing based on the square footage of the building that you have that was just presented to you. So we are charged with getting this cost estimate done by the 24th, which is next Wednesday. We are working very hard to pull that together with getting as much information as we can inside that estimate. We are working very closely with SLAM and with the Central Middle School Building Committee to be able to get any answers and all answers that we can to make this estimate as thorough as possible from the get-go. Again, it is very early on, as everybody said. There is information that we're going to collect. Again, that clay analogy. As we get more detailed information, we're able to bring this closer and closer to home and closer to the design that you have here for Central Middle School.
Great. Thank you, Tim. So Kemp, are you ready to be the shall answer man? Okay, okay. All right, good, good.
So I think I'm sharing, yeah, the list of questions now. This is the partial compilation that Kemp just shared. He's still collecting more questions from you, so thank you very much for participating. We have one question on sustainable design. We have a number of questions on building programming, I think 14 so far. One on, or well, that must be 13. One on handicap accessibility, and a number of them on the construction process and the building design and site design. So starting at the top, sustainable design, not a question. We continue to press all parties. We will continue to design with sustainable design in mind. Net zero is the goal. School programming. How can we help the BET and other town bodies understand the Central Middle School cannot be reduced further? That's really a question for the Board of Ed, I believe. Can the educational specs be divided into phases for the project to be completed over time in 2 major phases? Well, that's a BOE question, I guess, but that is also a constructability question. And I'm not sure how you have one half of a building open, a new building, and still have half of your program in the other building. So that is a challenge. We'll let Turner take care of that constructability question. Some have a concern that the design is too large based on current enrollment. Has there been any thought of moving some kids from Eastern, which is often referred to as overcrowded? Board of Ed question. I understand the plan is similar to New Lebanon in that the Board of Ed has students staying in the current building while the new CMS is built. Is that common practice? Oh, sure. Sure. So the question number 5 on the screen, actually, I can, hold on. Is that better? Sure. I'm reading number 5. Questions up to this point have been really for the Board of Ed. This one is a question about the practice of building a new school on the existing site while the existing building is up and running. That is a common practice. As you might imagine, most communities do not have a second site where they can have an ongoing school remain in place while a new building is built. So this is very common. SLAM has buildings under construction right now, designs that we've worked on that are in that condition where the existing building was up and running, new building was built, students moved. One of those examples is in your neighboring town, Darien at Oxridge Elementary School. And we have another one going on right now in Northwestern Connecticut. but I'm sure that Turner also has experience with that same process.
Yeah, I would just echo that, Amy. It is very common practice to have that done. If you looked at the priority list that's at the state now, the projects that are going on, again, Amy named a few of them. Jim, I know, is also involved with several of those throughout the state, where we are building, or our other construction management firms are building on the same property as the existing school, and then doing the demolition. I could say that within the last 5 years, I've been with at least 3 of them that had the same process.
Sure, let's skip around. ADA accessibility, it was recently stated on numerous Facebook posts about the building that, okay. Let me get it closer. There we go. Wow. It was recently stated on numerous Facebook posts about the building that even with the full square footage planned, the building would not be fully ADA compliant. Is this true? No, that is not true. I can categorically tell you that we are not allowed, we will not be approved, and we, as professionals, would never consider designing a building that is not fully accessible. That's the law. Construction process. Can you share how construction safety is handled during construction of the new school? How will the students and staff be kept safe? Additionally, is this common practice? So we did talk about that it is common practice. There will be a physical barrier between the construction area on site and the existing school that will remain up and running. We are lucky that in the current design that we've proposed, the new building construction can take place on the fields. The athletic fields would be interrupted and unfortunately not in use during construction, but the 2 existing entrances on the site at Indian Rock Lane would remain in place. And there would be no interruption to the current site circulation until much later in the process when site work is being done.
And Amy, just to be clear, the construction entrance would probably be somewhere similar to where we have one of the new entrances proposed. So that would be entirely separated as well. So there wouldn't be danger to children from a truck coming through. Basically, there'd be construction fence surrounding the northern portion of the site while the new facilities built, and that would include, all areas except for whatever's needed to maintain the existing school in a functioning and safe condition, including a fire lane.
Good, Amy. Once we get into construction, the safety of the students, the staff, and the community around the project are going to be the top priority. We've been involved with many projects similar to this. We know that communication with the staff and students, the administration, the communities can be critical to make sure and ensure the safety of everybody on the project.
Thank you, Tim. So I think that also goes to number 22 on this list, which is a concern for the health risks to students. Guaranteeing student safety. I'm not the constructor, but as a part of the design, we will work hard with Turner to develop site logistics that keep, again, the students and the existing school completely separate from the construction areas, both physically and there will be some restrictions on time for construction material deliveries. And so we'll try to keep the traffic from construction separate from the current traffic that's generated at drop off and pickup time. And I'm just stating that because that is a safety concern as well, the traffic on the surrounding roads, as you have a lot of walkers coming to the school. We don't have a calculation on rock blasting right now and rock removal. There are a number of different types of rock removal. Scarifying and scraping the rock is the first choice so that we would avoid blasting if possible. But there is a lot of rock on the site. We understand that. You can see it. So in some areas where the rock will have to be removed, the site construction team will look at what the best method is to remove the rock. What are the steps in the bidding process? Will we have access to the information? So this will be a publicly bid project. The bids will be read aloud after they come in. Turner will be handling the bids. SLAM will be putting out the bid documents. And together we will answer any questions from bidders as they come in during that 2 or 3 month bidding period. But on bid day, yes, the bids will be read aloud as is customary and required by a public bid process.
Yes, I mean, everything here, because it is public bidding, will follow the state guidelines as well as the town of Greenwich guidelines for procurement. All the bids are read aloud, as Amy said. Everything is open book. And there is no negotiations when you have the public bidding process.
So general design, there's a question listed, who is the final approval authority for option 7.2? What is the deadline for that final decision? Sure. No, I don't mind. It's progress.
So yes, so a couple of comments about question 24. It's a great one and it's the right one. First of all, option 7.2, it may the ultimate final presentation may be hypothetically a 7.8 or maybe an 8. We don't know that part yet. But ultimately, the Board of Education has to give the approval for the design. And as you can probably imagine, on the building committee today, Dr. Jones has a designee in Dan Watson. The Board of Education has a designee on the building committee, who is Laura Costin. She's a voting member. In fact, I see Laura in the back here tonight. So the point being, and I'll go back to my comment earlier of the theme of communication, all of the appropriate stakeholders that have to make ultimately these decisions have been part of the committee since we started in July of last year. So the deadline, we don't know that yet, but that, as you may surmise, given what I just said, that will ultimately be on the Board of Education agenda as we go down that path. And we'll continue to update the community on our website as to what the final option will be to be considered as we go there. So those are a couple of comments about the general design process, Amy.
Thank you. And I'm just going to reshare my screen. Kemp sent an update. So we are updating in real time here. You can see that instead of one question for sustainable design, we have a second. There's a concern about embodied carbon in the materials. That's wonderful. That is something that I'm very passionate about as well. If using stone, would like to see it sourced from the region. We will be sure that that's the case. Limit of concrete and use pervious surfacing for these long driveways. We would love to do that as well. We will have a combination of pervious and impervious materials for the driveways. Some which will need to be heavy duty driveways for your buses, service vehicles, and fire department do have to be heavier duty. But we will have pervious surfacing at the parking spaces and probably along the sides of those drives. Henry, do you want to add to that?
No, that's correct. That's correct, Amy. And in fact, there may be some permeable pavers on the perimeter of the fire access lane as well to pick up water coming down off the hill. We're trying as best we can to infiltrate as much stormwater back into the ground before we have to deal with it more formally. So there'll be a lot of look at, permeable pavements.
Great, thank you. And I will put a little plug in. SLAM has been developing new specifications from our structural department for concrete. And we have been utilizing a ground glass as a filler in our concrete in recent projects, reducing the carbon impact of all of the concrete for foundations and slab on grade and concrete on the raised floors by 27% from just a year ago. So we continue to look at the latest technologies and make sure that we're using the best products that we can find to reduce our carbon impact. I'm looking at new questions. Many of them are also for the Board of Ed, questions about enrollment, questions about overhead in maintaining bathrooms. Will there be 4 or 6? There has been an update to the ed spec in April, and the original ed specs did call for 6 tennis courts, but that has been reduced to 4. So the existing 4 tennis courts, whether or not they're upgraded or improved as a part of this project hasn't been determined, but the location of those tennis courts will be maintained as a part of this project. We'll go through 2 more. Let's see, building design. Is a gym with no outside windows a health or safety issue? We'll probably, the design is going to change as we move forward. So I don't want to say that the one that you saw tonight called 7B is the floor plan that we are going to end up with. But we always look to have a natural daylight in all of our spaces where students are. So yes, we will have clerestory windows high on the wall so that they're not damaged by people throwing balls, but that it does allow natural light in. Hall congestion is a safety issue. We agree. I don't have experience with that here in this school, but we are very conscientious about providing the right width of corridors and maintaining the clearances required to access lockers and to have the right number of students back and forth, especially for passing between classes, but as a requirement also of the code for safe egress. There's a good question here. If I can go one last one. Okay. If kids leave out the back, as it just explained, does that pose any security risks and give outsiders access? No. This is a great question. Security is of the utmost importance to us. So all of the exterior doors will be locked at all times other than the main entrance door during parent drop-off. The doors will have electronic hardware, and they will always be in a locked position. Those doors at the main entrance will be locked after drop-off time, and they will remain locked all day. You will have a locked vestibule, and the only place where people can be let in and out is through a locked vestibule, similar to what you have here, but improved because we will also provide a window, ballistic safe glass pass-through window to the main office for someone to check identification of those people coming in. So there will be a locked vestibule. There will be a position for someone to check your identification and check you in. And only after that background has been done and you'll be given permission to enter the building. All exterior doors will be in the locked position with card reader access for coming back in when necessary.
Okay, Amy, thank you. Can we go to the last slide on staying informed? So as we said earlier, we will keep the Mentimeter open until 8:15. If you have additional written questions, please bring those down. We'll be sure to include them. And as you can see on your screen now, this is not the right one. Let's go. There we go. As you can see, we have been working very, very hard to hear from you, get your questions and feedback and so forth. If your question was not answered tonight, please check on the website, which is the address on the screen. We will give us just a very few days. Hopefully by Monday, we can have all of the questions answered and posted on the website. Not only will you have access to that, but we have recorded the presentation for this evening. You can find the recording on the Greenwich Public Schools YouTube channel. So there is a lot of places where you can access information. One is the recording of this meeting. The other is answers to the questions on the GPS website that you see on the screen. In addition to that, maybe you have a follow-up question, or maybe on the drive home tonight, or in the comfort of your home for our streaming audience, maybe you have a follow-up question. As you can see, we do have a Gmail account that if you would like to submit a follow-up question, either tonight or after you read the answers online, we would welcome that. Again, the response will not be immediate because we are volunteers and we are sensitive to the time, and we will do our very best to answer as quickly as possible. But we do want to be sure to point the Gmail account out. And then lastly, before we go, I want to be sure to recognize the building committee. These are the group of people that meet every week, sometimes two. Some weeks we've met 4 times a week. We have several that are out this evening under the weather. I know Claire Kilgallen is online with COVID, so we'll do a shout out to Claire. We miss her always. But for the building committee members that are here, if I could ask you to stand, please join me in a round of applause for those that are here. Thank you. All right, and we have Chairman of the Board of Education, Joe Kelly, in the back of the room, as well as Dr. Jones. Thank you both for carving out some time tonight to be here. Absolutely. Okay, that concludes our meeting. Again, our professionals will be down front afterwards to answer any questions that you guys might have. Henry, Jim, Kent, Amy, and the other Jim and Tim, thank you all for being here. Stay tuned. Don't change the dial. There's a lot more to come. Thank you very much. Good night.